This week on RuneScape Retold, we investigate a holy druid, a deteriorating forest, in the battle between good and evil. Join me as we take our adventures east of the south, past the warning signs and gates, and deep into the history of Mort Myre. This week's NPC of the week is an enemy so unique that it must require its own plate of spaghetti deep in the code. Welcome to Episode 2 of RuneScape Retold, Swamp Man Good. Before we jump into the action, I just want to take a moment for some transparency. This episode has been surprisingly difficult to navigate and to write, and while the story feels like there's so much to tell, I quickly realized that the game tells us basically nothing about it. See, Mort Myre only has a couple pieces of dialogue, a couple little bits of fluff, and so I had to take some creative liberties. I hope that you'll experience this episode not as a solidified and guaranteed lore of the world, but rather this storyteller's version with the limited resources I could find to tell a meaningful and impactful story. While not all episodes will require the large creative license that I'm taking here, this one definitely does. With all that out of the way, let's take a look at our story this week. The story of Filliman Tarlock. Our story today begins in Mort Myre, but not the desolate swamp that we now know it as. No, instead, as a beautiful and vibrant place, a forest known as Humblethorn. This thriving forest was bursting with life and beauty. Tall trees reaching for the sky, their canopies teeming with vibrant birds. The forest floor a tapestry of colorful flowers and bustling critters. And at the heart of this paradise, a small grove, the home to a devout ceremonious druid who had dedicated his life to the forest. This guardian of life and harmony, this protector of nature, was a man named Filliman. Filliman Tarlock was once a humble druid, renowned for his wisdom and his deep connection to the natural world. He had dedicated his life to protecting the forest and all of its inhabitants. Under his watchful eye, the forest, Humblethorn, flourished, and its beauty had become legendary throughout the entire known world. But a darkness loomed over the horizon. The vile nature of Mauritania, driven by an insatiable hunger for power, had sought to corrupt the forest and to bend its natural energy to its will. This twisted magic seeped into the ground, spread decay and death. The trees withered, the animals fled, and the once vibrant forest began to transform into a lifeless swamp. This is where Filliman comes in. Desperate to save the forest he had dedicated his life to, he embarks on a perilous quest. Filliman ventured deep into the heart of the encroaching darkness, seeking a way to stop the spreading corruption. Guided by ancient whispers of the forest spirits, he uncovered a relic of immense power, the very heart of Humblethorn itself. A simple stone, but a stone that would come to mean more to this world than he could ever imagine. This is where his real quest begins, with a stone and a purpose. And so, we meet Filliman now, stone in hand, surrounded by darkness, with little guide on what to do next. As a devout ceremonious, as a druid, he had mastered the ways of nature and of prayer, and he was led far east in the swamp, to a wise old tree, a living part, a breathing part of the forest. He was led to the forest of Hespori. The reaction that he was met with from the plants was not to be unexpected. Hespori reacted negatively, seeing that just a mere human was controlling the very nature around him. That stone was meant to be protected. That stone was meant to be kept hidden from evil. And there was no greater evil, according to Hespori, than man. Filliman did all that he could to defeat Hespori that day, to hold him at bay and allow him to see that he wasn't like the other people. Now, for our purposes, large living trees, not unlike ants, but unable to move and much angrier, aren't always the easiest combatants. But Filliman was prepared. He had the resolve of a man who knew the right thing to do, and he wasn't going to allow some oversized flower to step in front of his destiny. And so, although he loved nature, Filliman knew what needed to be done. In this battle, Hespori yielded important information to Filliman. He told him that the stone needed to be returned to its rightful place, that he needed to trudge back into the darkness, but that he shouldn't do it with the stone out in the open, that it would attract too much trouble. And so, Hespori took a piece of his bark and some leaves, and he threaded the stone to create a beautiful, glowing amulet. The amulet was placed around Filliman's neck, and he was sent back on a mission. Hespori, in this moment, the forest, Humblethorn, it all placed its trust in one simple man, a man who just wanted to do what was right. And so, Filliman marched against Mauritania. With the amulet in hand, Filliman went to confront his enemy in a fierce battle, shaking the very earth underneath them. Facing torrents of dark magic, Filliman's resolve was unyielding. Attempting to channel the power of the amulet, he calls upon the forest itself, summoning roots and vines to ensnare the dark magic and halt its advance. Yet, despite all of Filliman's efforts, the power of Mauritania was too great. He recognized that he could not defeat him alone, and so Filliman made a heartbreaking decision that day. Using the last of the amulet's power, Filliman went to create a protective barrier around a small portion of the forest. He attempted to save but one space from the spreading corruption, and he succeeded in creating nature's grotto, or the grove. The grove that became a sanctuary, untouched by Mauritania's evil and left aside. Now exhausted, no longer knowing who he was or why he was there, Filliman's spirit merged with the grove, and he went on to become its eternal guardian. Though Filliman could not save the entire forest, his sacrifice ensured that a small piece of its beauty and of its purity would endure. Over time, this sanctuary became known as the Nature Spirit's Grove, the place where the spirit of Filliman Tarlock still watches over the remnants of his beloved forest. The Nature Spirit Grove now is a beacon of hope amidst the desolation of Mauritania. It's a testament to Filliman's bravery and to his love of the natural world. And now those who venture into the grove can feel his presence. It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, the light of nature's resilience endures. And this, adventurers, is where our story begins. See, it's our goal to enter Mort Myre, to restore the nature spirit, to fight back against the evil that has taken hold of the forest. And who knows, maybe one day we may even see Mort Myre restored to the once beautiful Humblethorn. But it all starts with you, with Filliman, in the quest that we know him for, the nature spirit. Our quest begins with none other than Drezel, a man who, at this point, has had no introduction, but we'll have to talk about him at a later point, as we go over a different quest all about that specific priest and the peril which he faced. Before we tell that story, all you need to know is he was somehow connected to Filliman. He was aware of Filliman's goal to keep the purity of the forest, and his request was simple: check on my friend and make sure he's doing okay. The level of ignorance coming from Drezel is simply shocking, as it appears as though his friend has been dead for a long time, fought a war without him, and even gave up his own life in the attempt to protect something that he held valuable. I don't know about you. If I was Filliman, I probably would be looking for a new support system, but all I know is this. It's up to us. And so, our quest begins. A concerned friend asking if we would check up on the nature spirit, or as he knows him, Filliman. And this is where our real quest begins. We make our way through the Mort Myre swamps, past those little snails who will destroy you if you're not wearing the backpack of one of their brethren on your head, past ghasts who we'll actually talk more about later, into this small section of the Mort Myre swamp, to the grotto which Filliman had given his life to protect. This small remnant of what Humblethorn once was, symbolizing the life that could be had once again. This part of the quest, we find not Filliman the druid, but a green, confused, lost spirit. And we, like all good people, steal his journal to give it a quick read and get a better understanding of who this guy was. In doing this, we quickly learn that we can restore Filliman to what he once was. We can give him a reminder of who he was and actually restore even this grotto to the glory that it was meant to hold. But it begins with a few sacred items. Items that have a piece of Filliman's spirit that as we present them to him, he's going to remember more of who he is and what he stands for. Eventually, I'll let you figure out how. Filliman's memory is restored. His spirit is reignited, and he quickly realizes that his work and his purpose is far from over. And this is when he gives us a nifty little piece of information. He teaches us how to bless a silver sickle, to create a tool that can actually allow us to battle the ghasts that plague the swamp. And now, with some guidance, and some hard work, and some reading of a quest guide, we are able to drive back the darkness, to bring life back to the grove, to set things better, at least a little bit, than when we found them. Honestly, in my research and searching for this quest, I actually found myself to be a little bit disappointed. It feels like we've been handed this, small tidbit of what could be, but they don't ever address the story or the history or tell me anything really about Humblethorn. All I know is that this man gave everything so that he could protect something and partially succeeded. But in the end, I don't think the quest is really about Filliman. And I don't think it's really about our character either. I think it's about something a lot bigger. I think this quest actually teaches us something about ourselves, about our world, and about how we interact with it. I think Filliman is actually teaching us a valuable lesson. Filliman is showing us that, in the end, it's not about what I can do for myself. It's about what I can do to actually improve things. Leave things better than when I found them. And so, the next time you're walking through Mort Myre, the next time you jump that broken bridge, hopefully not for experience, I'm so sorry, Swampletics. And the next time you do the Nature Spirit quest, don't just think about the simplicity of the quest, don't just think about the lack of information we have, but actually take a moment to appreciate the value and weight of sacrifice, and recognize that Filliman was willing to give his life to secure a small piece of what could be. So what are you fighting for? Well, adventurer, I hope one day we're fighting to see Humblethorn fully renewed, recreated, and beautiful, but I doubt Jagex will ever do that. But the truth is, I don't think the Nature Spirit quest is about battling ghasts. I don't think it's about even the restoration of Filliman. I think in the end, it's actually about the power of healing and restoration in our lives. I think that this quest is actually a reminder that there is a balance between life and death. And it's a reminder that we all need something to stand for. Filliman's story is a testament to this idea. that even in the darkest of places, even in times when we feel like there is nothing worth living for, there is a hope and light waiting to be discovered. And so, if you're walking through Mauritania, if you're walking through Mort Myre and you're seeing the disgusting world around you, remember Filliman, the man who's willing to give it all up in an attempt to make things just a little bit better. Now, there's one other thing that needs to be addressed. We're talking about Mort Myre. We're talking about a swamp. The name of the episode is Swamp Man Good. Obviously, I can't really use that title and talk about this area of the game without giving a shout out to one of the game's greatest content creators, Seld. His incredible series, Swampletics, was honestly for me one of the big things that got me into the storytelling aspect of RuneScape. And so if you haven't seen it, go watch it. His dedication and creativity in navigating the swamps and jumping over that broken bridge to that swamp man over and over and over again was inspiring. And that was not paid. That was just like a quick little, if you haven't seen it, go watch Swampletics. It's a beautiful, beautiful masterpiece. Now, continuing on, if you find yourself wandering through Mort Myre, I hope you do remember Filliman Tarlock. I hope you take a moment to appreciate the beauty of the grove and the spirit that protects it. And I think if you listen closely, you might even notice Filliman's gentle whisper guiding you on your journey. Welcome to the Creature of the Week. This week we're venturing deep into the swamps of Mort Myre, as we learn about one of the most unsettling inhabitants and most confusing NPCs in this entire game, the Ghast. Ghasts are apparitions haunting the entirety of the Mort Myre swamp. They are the restless spirits of those who died within the swamps, corrupted by its dark influences. These creatures are annoying. They ruin your food. They creep up on you, but you can't click on them. You see, they've been a constant annoyance to many adventurers who have gone through the swamp's murky depths, whether trying to get to that Barrow's chest or just doing those quests that we're going to talk about later. And while we all know how annoying they are and what they might do, I don't know if we all know where they come from. So yes, they're corrupted by Mort Myre, by the evil that has taken place, but Ghasts aren't just another enemy. They're said to be the lingering souls of people that starved to death in Mort Myre Swamp. Which really brings the poetic justice full circle. For their lack of food, they're now going to steal yours. And so, if you're wandering through Mort Myre or heading to dig up that clue scroll, or maybe you're just on your way to get a Barrow's chest and you don't have a better way there yet on your low-level Iron Man, I need to encourage you. Bring a druid pouch if you value your sharks. And if you value the light of the forest, if you want to fight against the swamp's corruption, kill the ghoul. Because as you kill the Ghasts, it's not just their death, it's actually their release. And so, these Ghasts serve as a tragic reminder. They're the souls lost to starvation in the swamp's corruption. They represent the inability to find peace. But as we defeat each Ghast, we can bring a little bit more light back to this darkened land. That's it for this week on RuneScape Retold. Thank you for joining us, and I hope that you've enjoyed this adventure together. As we continue to dive into the stories of RuneScape, if you need this for your commute or while you're escaping on the side, I'm currently killing some Kraken on my Iron Man, by the way. Be sure to follow, subscribe on whatever podcasting platform you use, and leave a like if you feel like doing so. I'm not going to beg. If you want to keep up to date with me or chat about podcasts ahead of time, or you have ideas that you think would make this thing better, you can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Wimba. I look forward to seeing you all next time with Wally, the unsung hero.